Hi friends, and welcome to this full build of Meng's 1/72 scale Atreides Ornithopter. Last year I did build the minis, which was a nice quick one-day build, and this being a snap kit is also quite simple but definitely somewhat more involved. Maybe a weekend more than a day's work. I'm a little skeptical about snap kits since they tend to be simple and have low detail, but all said, this one was quite decent and some pretty good engineering. I have two major critiques, and that would be by the end of the build with all those long wings, this is quite a heavy model, and if you build it in the standing configuration, the legs are a bit flimsy and I had one break off that had to be repaired. Besides that, one other thing I don't like about this kit are the windows, which have very visible joints, but I found a decent way around that, I think, which we'll have a look at later. First things first is building the wing mechanism, which is really, it's quite a bit of engineering for very little reward. The wings don't move that much. It feels like a little bit of a waste, but it's there and you have to assemble these in a particular order. I parked that for a moment just to get the interior done, which is effectively the base, some seats and little characters, which I've painted in Mr. Surface Black and then using Vallejo model color for the skin tones. One character is Professor Kynes, I think, which in the movie was a lady of color. Out of interest in the book, Professor Kynes is Chenny, Paul's love interest's father, which, yeah, that's a bit awkward. Since I'm painting this interior black to help it along, I'm dry brushing some metallic paint onto the edges just to help it read through the glass by the end of the build. Alright, so then time to assemble. I did have some problems which I've cut around in the edit here, but this wasn't a very straightforward fit for me. I did have to shave off a few millimeters from the blades housings. Other than that, it fits okay. And then putting all their little appendages on all over the show, which all of it adds some nice detail. While we build this, I had a look at some of the story behind these vehicles in the movie, which were beautifully designed. Primarily, they were designed by the film's production designer, Patrice Met, I think it is, and the director Denis Villeneuve, with concept artists on the team like Carlos Fuente. So, as you know, Meng has released two Ornithopter kits, the Atreides and the Harkonnen. There is a third Ornithopter in the film, which is of course the older two-seater Ornithopter that Paul and his mother escape from the Saru car with and fly into the storm. Gamebody has a 3D printable kit of that guy, and I'm tempted to give it a shot. Now onto the landing gear, which, as I say, as robust as it looks, feels a little brittle to me once this kit is fully assembled. It all goes together well. Of course, there are two variations for this model. You can have it stowed in flight mode, which then you can build the stand for. I have decided for the landing configuration where all the gear is down, the ramp is down, and the model rests on that gear. So with that all said, I'm going to prime everything, the landing gear as well as the cockpit. Now unfortunately, midway through this project, I switched to a new camera system. In teething issues, I lost some media, which included filling some minor gaps in the hull. So sorry about that, but you will see when it comes time to paint, you will see some of the filling detail on the model. So I was pretty happy with the colors I achieved in my Mini, so I went back to that video to match the paint scheme. I'm putting up the colors and the mixing ratios on the screen if you want to copy. But effectively the Atreides Ornithopter is like a dark brown. Let's call it pure laziness. I did not put down a primer on the main hull. I went straight to quite a thick layer of the paint, which lucky for me worked out. I can't remember why I didn't put down primer, honestly. It was a bit of a strange one, I normally do, but it all worked out in the end. Right, so then I seal in that work with a Vallejo polyurethane matte varnish mixed with airbrush thinners, and of course then it's time to weather with oils. For me, that was the make or break on this kit, was the dust weathering. First thing I do is lay down a layer of odorless thinners and give it about half a minute to dry. The first oils went on a little heavy, it felt too much, so I used a brush damp with thinners to reduce some of that color, and then I used some scrumpled up paper, dipped in the oil colors, color is buff, to dab on some random patterns, which then I work in just enough so that it feels like localized dust buildup. Strike a balance between texture that's not too fuzzy, that has a little bit of detail to it. And that was really it. Eventually it became a case of dry brushing the oils directly on and then using either the same brush or a different brush to scrub and to blend the pigment in over the model. We don't want anything too uniform. The film's craft had quite a patchy texture to it, which is what I was going for, and I'm pretty happy with what I achieved here. Then I wanted to just simulate some exhaust, so using the Starship Filth oil color around those regions, and then just fine-tune some weathering in the smaller details here and there, and then moved on to the blades. So putting on some color quite roughly, and then using a brush damp with thinners to get a vertical pattern running down the length of the blade, and then using some tissue paper to wipe to blend that through. After that, I seal in that work with a ultra matte varnish from Vallejo, and then while that's drying, moved onto the glass. Now, my plan here to use Tamiya's acrylic smoke and build up some layers to darken the glass, because in the movie there's definitely a tint to the vehicle's windows. I think I must have done about 5 layers here, leaving 2 minutes in between each pass, making sure to spray on the inside of the glass so that when I handle them I only touch the outside, which can of course be wiped. Then I used AK marker in rubber black, mark the edge of the windows so that they don't refract, because in builds I've seen online, these windows refract quite badly and show off those square joints that I really don't like. By painting the edges of the windows black, that helped to minimize quite a bit. There was another trick on top of that helped minimize that, was to build up some oil weathering on the edge of the windows, especially where the joints are. I neglected to mention, when I put the blades in, they weren't as weathered as the hull itself, so I did a little bit of localized weathering just over the joints, into the blade, feathering that off into the blade, just so that it doesn't contrast with the main hull too much. Right, so blending some oils over the glass, making sure not to go too heavy on this, breaking up the paint strokes with a clean, large, soft brush, just enough to feel like dust build up so that we don't feel any oil strokes. And that is pretty much the build in a nutshell. It was a nice quick one, as you can see by the duration on this video. For the reveal, I am trying something new. My day job is in visual effects in the film industry, and more we're starting to use AI as a tool. I thought I'd give it a shot in terms of integrating this model into some AI environments, trying to retain the detail of the original model as much as possible. Some people hate AI. I think it's the new reality of our world, and I'm trying to harness the beast here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that build. We got lots more coming soon. I apologize for the gap in builds recently. Work has reared its ugly head, but there's quite a few in the pipeline. Thanks for your time, enjoy, and I'll see you soon.